Welcome, everyone. So we'll get into some introductions, but I just wanted to just set the stage for something we wanted to try and open up to the rest of the community. And that was really us going through our PCNSE certification renewals. We have a couple team members. I'm one of them on a recertification requirement this year to get that refreshed. We have a new individual in our team that will be writing the exam for the first time. And we really wanted to take a different approach and just open up the discussion and literally invite the community to our table to have a conversation about the exam, preparation strategies, share some resources and information that we're aware of. And most importantly, listen, because there's probably some pieces that we've missed or some strategies or tips you guys could share back to us. So we wanted to take a different approach this year, invite you guys to this session as really an overview. And after this, we are planning to capitalize the same time slot on Fridays to have a focused discussion on the exam domains themselves. So today is some friendly introductions, an overview of the exam, and any open dialogue, any questions that anyone has or wants to ask. That is the purpose. So we have several people from our team on this call. What I wanted to do is let you know that we have an About Us on our website. So I wanted to just share that link, which Caitlin can toss in the chat. My name's Stefan Herbst. I'm general manager at Advantus360 and have the pleasure of supporting our services team and still being able to get my hands dirty once in a while. So nice to meet you for everyone that haven't had a chance to meet. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to highlight Paul. And Paul, I'll let you say a quick hello and anything else you want to add.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Fisher. It's nice to meet everybody. Looking forward to going through this. I'm an avid programmer. I've worked with the sort of development space a little bit and I love security stuff. So excited to go through this with you guys. But yeah, when it comes to cloud and APIs or development scripts, integration, things like that, I like to get my hands dirty with that stuff. So
awesome. Thanks, Paul. And then next, just scrolling down on our About Us page is Mohammed. Mohammed, I'll let you say hi.
Hi, everyone. Mohammed Azim. Yeah, I'm from the service delivery team here. I have worked a lot of years in Cisco and Palo Alto. Same passion like Paul mentioned. And yeah, here to help out.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Mohammed. And next, scrolling down is Jawad Fadul. Jawad, I'll let you say hi to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Jawad Fadul. I've been with Advantus 7 years now. Part of the service delivery team, mostly focused on network security through the managed services and professional services. I see some familiar names that I've worked with and then some new ones. So welcome, everyone, and look forward to this session.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Jawad. And I'm going to scroll down to you, Nathaniel. I'll let you say hi to everyone here and say a quick hello.
Hi, everyone. I am the newest member of Advantus. I am still fairly new to the security space, but I'm just really enjoying everything that I'm learning. I focus mainly on the managed services side of our operation. So if you're part of that, you'll definitely have talked to me before. But I'm here to sort of provide a bit of perspective on someone that's a bit newer to this whole Palo Alto product line.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Nathaniel. And yes, I am very proud of the team, and we do have quite a diverse skill set. I'm on the other end of the spectrum where my knowledge is dated, and I don't have as much practice as the rest of the team. So between Nathaniel and I and everyone in between, it's a very good scope of experience. All right, last but not least, Caitlin, behind the scenes, always doing many things. I'll let you say hi, Caitlin.
Yes. I'm going to stretch our scale and say I'm even less technical than you, Stefan, here. Definitely on the administrative end of things, just here to make sure things move smoothly. I can share links, and yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm here to help out.
Awesome. Excellent. Thanks, Caitlin. All right, PCNSE. All right, I'm going to start here with a public page that actually is a very good landing page, I think, for a whole bunch of resources related to the exam. So again, if I'm talking more so to my team, if I'm talking and you're like, Stefan, you're not on the page you're talking about, let me know and I'll try to fix that. But Caitlin could pop a link to this page in. It's a public Palo Alto page. You do not need to log in to get to it. And it's actually a very good place to bookmark and access several things provided by Palo Alto for the PCNSE exam. The first one that I'm going to click through, starting on the right-hand side, is a certification handbook. So for those of you who remember or maybe have prepared for the PCNSE exam several years ago, Palo Alto used to just have the study guide. But since then, there's a lot of surrounding pieces that have been added. And the certification handbook is probably the first thing I would say it's worth reading after taking a look at this landing page. The certification handbook really is an all-encompassing resource, everything PCNSE. So it's going to talk about very high-level Palo Alto things. It's going to talk about very specific things related about registering for the proctored exam at Pearson VUE, and how to go through booking an exam and actually writing the exam. It's very comprehensive. And it is, I think, relatively new. I don't recall seeing this. I could be wrong. The last time I had personally had to prepare and write the PCNSE exam. I am going to pause here and just briefly say, if there's any questions, interrupt me, dump them into the chat. We really want this to be interactive. So if anything comes to mind, just get it out there, toss in the chat, or feel free to interrupt and we can work to have that discussion or answer those questions. Going to scroll to one piece in this, I'm not going to go through all this, but I sort of want to go to a picture. This picture, you'll get to see that there's a lot of other acronyms listed here along with the PCNSE. So the other piece I just wanted to highlight, and the details are here, is that since the inception of the Palo Alto Network Certified Network Security Engineer, their first certification, which was all around the next generation firewall, there are additional certifications that Palo Alto has introduced. And I did just want to pause here and look at them in a different view, which is on the Pearson VUE homepage. Caitlin can copy this link in for you as well. This view of that same exam list, which in the certification handbook is described, talks a little bit about them in the certification handbook, is more in a picture format on the Pearson VUE page. And you can see they've since introduced some more analyst level certifications and entry level certifications. And there was a few points we just wanted to share with this because this has been relatively new for us. So Nathaniel's going to talk a little bit in a moment here about his experience, but for most of our team, we have not written the PCCET, the entry level cert, or the PCNSE. They did not exist and are more newer than the PCNSE certification. And as coming from someone who did wander down other certification tracks such as Cisco and Juniper, this one's a little bit different. You'll note, for those of you who've say done your CCNA then work to your CCNP. It's a very linear focus through sort of entry level, intermediate, and advanced, and that's not quite the arrangement here. And I am going to pause now. As I said, Nathaniel has had the opportunity to write both the entry level cert and the Certified Security Administrator cert. And maybe I'll let you talk a little bit about both of those, Nathaniel, and share some of the perspectives that you gained as actually preparing and writing both of those certs.
For sure. Yeah, so as Stefan said, I've written both the PCCET and PCNSE, and I feel like as you said, compared to a different certification system, they sort of serve different purposes. PCCET, for example, it's more of a high level certification so that you can, I guess, understand the lingo and the whole atmosphere of the cybersecurity world, as well as what the Palo Alto products offer. So someone like someone high up that doesn't need to know exactly how to configure stuff within the Palo Alto environment, but wants to know how to speak with someone in more technical terms, I'd recommend that to them. They can sort of understand the operations side of security and get their feet wet a little bit on that. In regards to the PCNSE, that's when you start to get into the technical side. It's a beginner certification for someone that wants to learn the basics of Palo Alto firewall administration. It doesn't get into depth too much. It doesn't focus as much on the troubleshooting side, but after you take it, you should feel like you have a basic understanding of all the first aspects of administrating a Palo Alto firewall. So for myself, coming in from already having IT experience, already having taken school for IT, I feel like the PCCET was not exactly worth it for me. I felt like I could have skipped over it. But the PCNSE, as someone who had never worked with Palo Alto before, I do feel like it was a good jumping off point, a good place to start it for just being able to do it all, right?
Right.
And have just a base level in everything so that you can get into learning more.
Right. No, that's awesome. And thank you, Nathaniel, for forging that awareness on our team. And I guess somewhat depicted on that picture, but maybe entry level should be called high level. And then, the PCNSE is really the entry level track from a technical perspective. So that's really good insights. And thank you for sharing that, Nathaniel.
Yeah, thanks.
Again, any questions on that, feel free to toss them into the chat or just interrupt us as we keep going through the rest of the items here. I'm going to browse back to the main landing page we started with. Just want to check you guys can see that page. All right. Now, so we went through the certification handbook from a high level. I did pivot just to the Pearson VUE page just to talk about the certifications from another high level. The other thing I wanted to quickly touch on was really two other elements, which are farther down. If you keep scrolling down the page, really it's the blueprint and the study guide, sort of the overview and the meat and potatoes. So let's just take a quick peek. If you haven't already, Caitlin, feel free to toss those links in. Again, these are publicly accessible. You guys can browse to those. So the blueprint is essentially like a table of contents document. The main domains are listed and there's tasks and subtasks within all the domains. So this is really a map of everything that is on the exam. And that's it. There's nothing else other than this breakdown. And I've personally used this, and we'll get into approaches, as just a bit of a map to chart your course. So you might have experience in other domains already, other competing firewall products where there's not a big jump to learn. There might be concepts that are totally like, I don't even know what they mean by that. What is that? And this is a really good document to sort of map and chart a course for either a study guide or closing some gaps through that preparation journey. And there is information on weighting and things like that. The other link at the bottom, the study guide, is an expanded version of all of those domains, tasks, and subtasks. And so this document is very large. And just to go to one example, you will see a subtask may have content and pictures, and ultimately, in some cases, and I'll see if I can find an example, links to the administrator documents and guides, further Palo Alto links. And so the study guide really is a great single resource to all the content that is likely to be on the exam. If you're going to look and wonder at what a specific domain would mean, if we just want to take one and think of core concepts and think about Internet of Things, that could be many things. We can go into the study guide into subtask 119 and understand what is Palo Alto mean in the context of the PCNSE certification for Internet of Things. So what are they actually talking about? And in this case, they also reference, as I was mentioning, other documentation as well. Now, I know we can touch on it here because I think after this, we're going to look at some resources that are behind a Palo Alto username and password, so to speak. But I do believe you will need to get to a lot of these resources that under docs.panorama or paloaltonetworks.com, like the Panorama one referenced here. You will need a Palo Alto support account to get access to these. For those of you that happen to work day in and day out with Palo Alto, you probably already have that. If you don't, there may be a way to register, or I would just investigate going to these links and finding out if you can register and gain access to them. But as a warning, up until what we've looked at so far is just publicly available on the website. So I'm going to go back and look at one last component on the main landing page. And then we're going to move and talk a little bit about some hands-on options, because I know that's an interesting component we always work to try to bring into the fold when preparing for the exam, to really help concepts sink in a little bit. But going back up to the enablement path on that main landing page, if you can see that on the screen, all of these links, if you hover over them, go to beacon.paloaltonetworks.com. And just to talk about Beacon from a high level, it's really Palo Alto Networks on-demand training platform. And I understand, I might be not 100% correct, but I understand that this is available to, again, Palo Alto Networks customers, Palo Alto Networks partners, such as us. And so a lot of this content, if you have a Palo Alto Networks support account, is available to you. And there is no shortage of content on Beacon. And this is a good list of courses, and in some cases, collections of courses that are applicable to the scope of the PCNSE exam. So that's what the enablement path, all these hyperlinks here are basically to different beacon links. And we can click on one here just to take a look at that. So you will have to be logged into this. Apologies if you don't have an account, this might not be relevant to you, but for those of you that do have an account, this is an example of a training landing page. Some are just a course, some are a collection of courses, and you can browse to different topics and then optionally take this as a learning on demand. This also is the portal for instructor-led, but you will find out when you get into that because it will you'll get into more of a scheduling situation versus as a learning on demand. That concluded sort of some areas we really felt were worth highlighting on the main PCNSE landing page, just wanting to call those out. I will maybe pause here and get ready to go into talking a little bit about some hands-on options, because I think we've covered a lot of great points of material, you know, as far as reading and traditional studying, but we all know that in these technical certs, depending on your learning style, some degree of doing is very beneficial. And what we're going to, there's really three sort of topics we want to talk about on the hands-on component. And two of them we've had experience with on our team, and one out of the three we haven't. So it's more of a sharing, but potentially someone on this participating on this call has more actual exposure done this. And in that case, it'd be great to learn from you if anyone's taken this. But I'm going to, we're going to talk about GNS3. We're going to talk about using the public cloud and the pay-as-you-go and GFW from the marketplace as a hands-on opportunity. And then the third really will be renting a lab. And we can also get into a lot of the lab rentals follow the structured Palo Alto lab guide. And we can also make sure you guys have a link to that as well. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Mohammed, first. Mohammed has a lot of GNS3 experience. He's used it not only for studying, but for some of our professional services delivery. And I'm not going to talk about it anymore because I'll let him dig into the GNS3 components and elaborate further. Will you take it away, Mohammed? I'll stop sharing here too.
Yeah, so out of the options that Stefan was mentioning, I'm going to talk about GNS3, which is the free option out of the three. Personally speaking, even with, you know, I did my CCI level certifications, and aside from renting the labs, I have used GNS3 for Cisco ASAs, Cisco routers, and it had helped me a lot in the past. But with the Palo Alto, coming on board with the Palo Alto, there is a way you can integrate Palo Altos in GNS3 as well. So the good thing about GNS3, first of all, obviously the cost is free. And then it's a multi-vendor tool, right? It's a simulation software, so you can add Cisco routers, Juniper firewalls, Palo Alto firewalls, Cisco firewalls, and you can have a simulated environment. And most of our clients, they kind of run on, you know, Cisco routers, Cisco switches, and Palo Alto. So it's a great way for me to simulate their environment in a simulation world. Yeah, and to be honest, I just wanted to share out that even going through the PCNSE track, I have used it for some hands-on labs, and it worked great. It gives you a complete picture. It runs on my ESXi server, so it gives me an experience to install it on the ESXi server, learn a little bit of networking from that level, and then obviously you can put in other networking gear on it. So it's a complete networking gear simulation lab, and it's you don't even have to rent anything if you are at a basic level. But if you go into any of the switching environment, yeah, I think it lacks a little bit there. Given that it's simulation software, so take it with a grain of salt that there could be, it's not 100% tool. I take it as like if a valid config is not working, I always have a doubt, okay, is it because of a software or if it's because of GNS3? So there's some sort of that aspect in there too. Yeah, so just wanted to see if anybody has used GNS3 in the past or had any questions I can elaborate on. I'll pause and take some feedback there.
And while others are maybe thinking of questions to ask, or they're like, nope, I'm not going to ask any questions. Mohammed, I know I had used GNS3 a long time ago before they had the web front end, but effectively you build a topology, you put these components in, and then you run it, and then you can log into these devices and sort of get that hands-on experience is sort of what the tool does.
Exactly. Yeah, they will act as, unlike packet trace or anything, it's not like a script. It's basically real OS, real devices. You can just log in through SSH, Telnet, whatever method you want to use it. And in fact, you can even traverse your production traffic through it. Like in my home lab, I can actually route my home network through the Palo Alto in GNS3 and effectively control traffic that way. It's a long shot, but it is possible where you can integrate your physical network load into the simulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Charles
great tool.
did. Yeah, and Charles did pop into the chat that they use it. So yeah, there's some part of the audience definitely has some hands-on exposure to it already, which is great. Now, if I'm prepping for the exam and I don't have access to Palo Alto licensing, can you use an unlicensed firewall, like a VM series image, and do some basic functionality testing in GNS3, Mohammed?
Absolutely. Yeah. Similarly, like in the cloud, AWS or Azure, you will put in, without going with the bundle option, if you do just put in VM firewalls, you will get all the capabilities that the VM offer, except, the unlicensed feature, you won't be able to look at the traffic monitoring of the logs, something like that, right? But outside of that, if you want to get some aspect of, how the graphical interface looks like or how the interface level testing will work. So all those basic testing can be worked on an unlicensed version of the firewall.
Awesome. No, that's great. Thank you for that overview, Mohammed, and sharing that. I'll go over, we go over to you, Paul, and maybe talk about how the public cloud could be used to get some hands-on exposure.
Hello, everybody. Okay, I'll take it. So public cloud, somebody else's computer, right? We can rent it and basically put a PCNSE VM on there and then apply a number of different architectures. So very, very high level virtual machines running standard VM PCNSE can secure traffic that's passed to it through a number of architectures. You're going to be utilizing constructs of clouds such as load balancers, so network load balancers, application load balancers, gateway load balancers, IPs or assignment of interfaces, things like that, route tables, VNets or VPCs, IPsec tunnels and transit gateways potentially in that architecture. So any information there or any knowledge base and how to basically network things together in the cloud is still, it's very valuable. But not everyone has that knowledge to get in, just wanting to get a firewall up in for a couple dollars and shut it down again. So we'll talk about some options. So if you don't want to get to the whole construct piece, but that knowledge is important if you're trying to build in the public cloud. Clouds I've built in personally, and Mohammed has lots of experience building in the public cloud as well. AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform or GCP, and Oracle Cloud. And a lot of concepts transfer nicely between them. So if you do learn in one, you'd be able to jump to another pretty readily with the networking components. So there are some nuances. Each has their own little flavor. They're starting to get closer and closer together over time, but they each have their own flavor, how they approach things. So Azure's use of public IPs for load balancer health probes is very interesting. Azure's ability to mask system routes with user routes, and this is now in AWS a little bit, so they're coming sort of aligning there. But that was unique, which means that the architecture sometimes is unique because of these nuances, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. Oracle has some interesting HA through plugin requirements. AWS's transit gateway versus gateway load balancer was sort of two different architectures that came out. And then VNet routing defaults with the ability or without the ability to mask it at the time. Now, things are changing too. So another piece to all of this is these nuances are changing in time. Because they're changing, architectures get updated. So something that we used to build is not something we probably build today. And I expect it's probably not how we build in the future either. So it is good to stay on top of like those changes in the public cloud so that you can adapt your architecture. And normally that means better scaling, better security, better posture, or better architecture, better condensing in some ways. So all these things have brought features to. So if you continue to upgrade your sort of virtual machine constructs and these networking constructs, you do end up getting some better features for it normally. There's normally a reason why they add features. Okay, trying to test drive it, really getting to the cloud and running it. So I'll talk about Azure mostly because a lot of people seem to be in Azure, especially with corporate backing. You know, your Active Directory's in there, so people that normally have some access to Azure. Very similar to AWS and all of these components as well, though. Or GCP, Oracle Cloud as well. It's a little more work with Oracle Cloud, but so quick and easy. There's a marketplace image. I will dump this in the chat, Caitlin, because I don't think I sent it to you. But you can actually just go to Azure and look up Palo Alto. And there's a VM series next generation firewall. What this really does is it pulls an ARM image, which is like an automated resource, template. It's a type of IAC, infrastructure as code. So this template will deploy a bunch of things, subnets, VNets, everything you kind of need to run a Palo Alto. Now, this doesn't set up things like a Windows machine behind it or anything, so it's not a fully capable lab. This is just the Palo construct. But anyway, this is here. You can also get it through a few different options. So for licensing, it can come bring your own license or ELA, which basically means it's unlicensed. Same limitations that Mohammed already talked about. So you can't do monitoring on the traffic logs. You can't go get updates, right? You can't grab the latest threat vulnerability signatures, things like that. But if you go with any of these bundles, and I'll leave that for you guys to go with this Google bundles because they're different SKUs with different costs of running, it's licensed. So you can do all the configuration, you can see your logs and all of that goodness. So if you're just running it for a couple hours to get your feet wet, bundle options are a great choice. Just go with a cheap bundle. You probably aren't going to get some of the more advanced features like DNS security and stuff that are included in some of the other bundles. So now this is a big machine. So one thing I'm just going to bring back to this is running a large VM for a long time can get costly. So I don't know if you guys have ever been bit in the public cloud, but it's pretty common, and I've been bit myself. Sorry, stuff. So just make sure you avoid this. There's a few things I would definitely recommend is set up alerts on your billing, use a test resource group so you can actually contain everything within a resource group that's not going to be applied to other costing models in your organizations particularly. And then also set up automatic shutdown policies. So if it hits a time of the day and you're just busy with other things because you moved on, it's Friday afternoon, you got busy and it ran all weekend and you got to talk to Steph in the morning on Monday, that's what we set up the automatic shutdowns for. So, and then, so that's the marketplace image. Okay. What's the problem with it? There's no HAVM support and you can't build a second VM through this marketplace image. The marketplace image wants to deploy all of these subnets and everything. So you can't just shove another Palo in there. It doesn't have the logic in that ARM template, which is something you can complain to Palo about. There's a public IP for management. It's pretty good. It's just PAN-OS. There's no host VMs or things to test. So it's somewhat limited. You still have to go in and start building things. You'd have to know how the Azure constructs work to sort of get, traffic running through it and things like that. Okay, so some other options. There are Palo Alto provided ARM templates for different architectures. So there's a GitHub repo. You can just go to Palo Alto Azure. And I'll actually just follow this so I can keep my two-tier template. Anyway, just go to GitHub. They have a bunch of different architectures that have listed out here. So some are like simple, some are like NAT WebDB, right? The two-tier is one of my favorites, and I'll show you guys that in a minute. All of these are basically ARM templates. So you load these into Azure and you just deploy them just like you would a marketplace image. It's just like your own marketplace, basically. So yeah, they have these templates and they're just JSON files that describe architecture. If you guys aren't familiar with IAC, it's basically just code that describes architecture, constructs like load balancers, subnets, things like that. And then the cloud takes that JSON template or that code and just runs through it in a predictable manner and builds your environment out. I should have described that earlier, actually. So that's the marketplace image. Sorry, that's the marketplace image, and that's the Palo Alto GitHub repo, which is also very valuable. You will notice that these are like 6 or 7 years old. So just a word of caution. They're great, but they're maybe not getting all the updates that we would like. So there might be some tuning and tweaking you may have to do. It's not too difficult to run these though. If you're curious, there's also Terraform scripts, which seem to be more up to date. Not sure if that's a direction by Paolo, but depends how you want to do it. This is, if you're not familiar with Terraform, Terraform is a different IAC, so it's a different way to build infrastructure as code. It uses kind of like a Python API engine, they call it Terraform, and it loads Terraform scripts and then runs all these API queries out to build the infrastructure. It's generic. It can work on multiple different things like AWS and Azure, so it's sort of common IAC language, whereas ARM is specifically Azure, CFT or CloudFormation templates is specifically AWS. So yeah, there's also Terraform things, and you can see they're updated a little more frequently, right? So if you're looking for something that's maybe more readily available right now, or if you want ARM, go here. Okay, final thing I want to chat about is the two-tier template. So if you're going to go to the ARM template because you don't want to deal with Python or you don't want to get into the what IAC is and Terraform and all that, you just want to run something, I would suggest you look at the two-tier template. There you go. Let me close these guys. So the two-tier deploys a single firewall with an untrust, a trust, and some web component and a database component. It also has some scripts in here for doing like an SQL attack, which is a very simple, like it tries to run SQL, and so you can do traffic between the two. So it has like some pre-built like run this to try things, which means you can build policy and see the effect once you deploy this to the cloud. So not only are you deploying a VM series, but you're deploying the VM series with a database and a web tier, in a very common pattern for like websites and things like that. So that's a great way to get into the public cloud with Azure, and very similar with AWS. Okay, and then finally, when going to prod, I definitely would say you want to reference the current or the latest version of the architecture guide. Obviously, things come up and clients want things slightly different ways, and you might have to take that into a different direction, or maybe your company needs something different than what's provided here. But if you just want to standardize, this is what everyone does, and you want to align to that because supportability, common knowledge base with Palo and TAC and things like that, you're going to want to try to reference this, which is basically their deployment guides for Azure. They have different design models, which is very important to understand. You can build it differently. So what kind of architectures support what? If you want an outbound traffic model versus an east-west traffic model versus an inbound traffic model. And yes, you can put all of these together in one as well. So if you would look at the outbound traffic model, as you can see, there's a common VNet here, and then they VNet peer to others, which actually have the resources in it, and it runs through a common VNet structure. Okay, I try not to get too deep. Hopefully that was enough, but not too much. I don't want to scare you guys away from using the cloud. It's a great way to run something for a while and tear it down again. Obviously, that's the real value of it. So spin something up, log into it, work with it, tear it down again. Just realize that it's running a firewall that requires like a sizable infrastructure behind it. It's 8 CPUs or 4 CPUs, 8 gigs or whatever it is today. It's big. So run it for a while and cut it down. I think it's like $1 an hour or something. It's pretty expensive with everything. So yeah, if you see here, I'll just show you the running costs, right? If you want to do a D3, you got about $1.38. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot. If you're trying to test something, get your hands in. This is a really cost-effective way to get to the cloud and work with it. Spend $5 in an afternoon and be able to touch all the products fully licensed, or all the features, I should say, of the NGFW fully licensed, but run it over a long enough time period and these costs add up. And most of these costs are the hardware. It's the running of such a large D3 instance that's basically expensive. Cool. Okay, I'll stop there. Any questions?
Yeah, well, yeah. I'll interrupt if you have any questions for Paul. Put them in the chat if that's more ideal. Yeah, I guess just to summarize, Paul, the public cloud, unlike GNS3, there's a little bit of understanding on how things are all connected together. And there's some particulars on how the firewall connects to other elements in the public cloud. That's just a caveat that people should be aware of. But after they cross that requirement, and you use the marketplace, you have a fully licensed firewall. So you can test all the advanced features. You could test all the licensed features. So I guess that's just summarizing from a high level, sort of some of the challenges and then the pros. And then very expensive if you just leave it on, but actually quite cost effective if you book a session, dig in, get your hands dirty, and then delete everything or delete the resource group if you're building it in there.
Shut it out when you're done, and you can always spin it up later.
Yeah,
as long as it's offline, it's not really costing you much.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I'll say thank you, Paul. And I'll say of course, we're not even touching on the fact that if you are lucky enough to have a physical firewall, well, that's great. You can plug it in. You can put the workstation you're working on through the firewall in vWire and test as you go. So we're not covering that option because I think if everyone had that option, or that people that do have that option, definitely are gonna leverage that. And thank you for posting those links, Paul. Okay, so in wrapping up, there's just one other option I wanted to share. I will go back and attempt to share out my screen. We'll cover this last hands-on option, and then we'll do a bit of a wrap up and pause if there's any questions, and then we can all move on with our wonderful Friday. Okay. All right, can you guys see the screen? It's a remote lab rental page, if you can see that. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so this is the one option we don't have exposure to. We haven't used it, so just being transparent on that. I've personally used other remote lab rental services. I think some of our other team members have. I wanted to highlight this one being it's more consumer focused. There's other lab rentals that are more for education institutions, but this company is a authorized Palo Alto training partner, and they offer lab rentals basically. And so if you want something more structured, you want to pay for a block of time, you want to have a bit of a guide so you're not having to mess around with initial setup, this could be a really good option for hands-on exposure. I'll let you toss the link in the chat, Caitlin, for this page. And I want to basically go to one other place and highlight, so we can't speak to the experience of this, but I just did want to highlight it. And if anyone else has used this by chance, definitely pop a note in the chat or interrupt. The other aspect you'll see on this page is they have standardized on a Palo Alto lab guide. So if anyone here has taken Palo Alto training that maybe their organization purchased, or had a chance to have any exposure to the Firewall Essentials, you would be familiar with effectively the EDU 210 lab guide. So on their page, and Caitlin can pop up a link here for this, this next link will be behind Beacon. So apologies for those of you that don't have access to Beacon, but the official lab guide, there is a link on Beacon to go, and I just want to show it to you at a glance. It's a downloaded PDF, but what it is a very comprehensive. I'm going to just preview the table of contents. I really want to respect that. Don't think this document is intended to be public domain, but if you have access to Beacon or purchase lab time from the authorized training partner, you would get access to this. But as you can see, there's a common topology, and there is a very expansive step-by-step guide to work through. So if you don't like to create your own adventure, you like to sort of follow a predefined adventure, the lab guide and the renting the lab could be a very good way to get hands-on exposure in a sort of a sequential based work through the lab guide approach. I do want to just highlight, I think they have the rough topology we could just take a quick peek at. Many hundreds of pages on this. So effectively, this is the picture. You know, all these scenarios are going to leverage this common topology. The rack you rent will leverage this common topology. You could recreate aspects of this in GNS3. You could recreate aspects of this in the public cloud for sure. So just wanted to showcase that. And in the last few minutes, I really just wanted to distill some approaches. And really that would be for someone just going through our team. So Mohammed and I have both written this exam before, but it was an older version. We have to recertify this year. Probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the blueprint and go highlight stuff. I have no idea really what it means. AI ops is new, telemetry is new. I'm going to go through this and highlight things and build a bit of a study plan on a subset of the tasks. And I'm going to probably pivot to the study guide to find out what are they talking about, and then wander to sort of feel like I understand the concept to go into the exam. Someone who has Palo Alto experience but hasn't written the exam, I would take the same approach, but don't skip any pieces. I would go through all of these aspects, even if you feel you know exactly what they're talking about. Going to the study guide will help ensure you understand the angle that they're coming from, the questions they might ask, because the content in there is representative of what you need to know to pass the exam. And for someone who has not written the exam and who doesn't have hands-on exposure, you really do want to find a way to get that hands-on exposure. And then just to recap those, if you have a firewall that's amazing, you can leverage that. You can probably leverage these. If you have a firewall, you probably have access to Beacon. You can probably leverage the lab guide, the formal lab guide from Palo Alto, and go that way. You can leverage GNS3. You can leverage the public cloud, or you could rent a rack as all options that might work for you. But if you haven't had hands-on exposure, it will definitely help to have that. And Palo Alto in the certification handbook recommends 6 to 12 months of time behind the firewall. So that's what they say. I think that's probably a good representation of what you would need to have to go into have success writing the exam. I'm going to pause there. I see there was a comment. Could we please email the links? Absolutely. We will do a wrap up and make sure we distribute all these links. If you guys have any questions while we're just wrapping up, please feel free to pop them in the chat on mute. What I will say is several of you that are on, that took the time, thank you again. You know our team, please reach out to them. If you know them, you have their contact info. If you haven't had the chance to work with us or interact with us, I'm going to put my email in the chat. Please feel free to reach out. If it's feedback, I'd like to know more about this. I can definitely redirect you to someone on our team that might be better able to answer a question or answer it myself. And also we will be organizing some domain focused sessions like this, keeping with the spirit of open dialogue and sharing in sort of our experiences and preparations. Yeah, Tavis, great point. So yeah, I think what we're looking at doing is taking these Friday time slots, just to double click on that. We're looking to take the same time slot on the following Fridays. You know, it's Friday, it's sort of a lunch, over the lunch hour, and actually have a session and sort of deconstruct each of the domains a bit with that same thought process of tips, links, and maybe approaches there. And really looking forward to others that really want to get to that level of detail or have done and are looking to share back to participate in those sessions. So if you booked, like for everyone who's registered for this session, we will send out the links to register for those follow-on ones with all the links in the content that we went through today. Thank you guys for taking the time and sharing with us as we sort of kick off the PCNSE journey, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the next session. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Good weekend. Yeah.
Thanks.